Hello, everyone. Good morning. The secret to staying calm, no matter what people do, is this. You stop giving other people control over your nervous system. Most of us think calm is something we find when life finally behaves. When people become respectful, when situations become fair, when everyone else stops triggering us. But here's the truth. Nobody tells you. Calm is not a reaction, it's a decision. Most people believe that staying calm is something you either have or you don't. They look at calm people and assume that's just their personality, or they're lucky, nothing bothers them. But calm is not a personality trait. Calm is a choice you make over and over again, especially when everything inside you wants to react. The truth is, nobody stays calm automatically. Even the calmest people feel anger, frustration, and hurt. The difference is what they do next. From the moment something triggers you, there is a split second where you still have control. That moment is small, but it's powerful. Most people lose it because they believe their emotions are in charge. They think, I feel angry, so I must react. But emotions are signals, not commands. Just because you feel something doesn't mean you have to act on it. Calm begins when you realize you can feel intense emotion and still choose your response. Think about how often people say, that person made me angry. That sentence gives away your power. Nobody can make you angry unless you hand them permission. What they can do is trigger a reaction you haven't learned to manage yet. When you understand this, you stop blaming people for your emotions and start taking responsibility for your reactions. Responsibility isn't about guilt, it's about freedom. Because if you are the one choosing your reaction, you are also the one who can change it. Choosing calm doesn't mean suppressing your feelings. It means slowing down long enough to understand them. When you pause instead of reacting, you give your brain time to catch up with your body. Your heart might be racing, your thoughts might be loud, but you don't have to obey them immediately. Calm people have trained themselves to delay their response. They breathe, they step back, they buy themselves time, and time creates clarity. Here's what most people don't realize. Reacting feels powerful in the moment, but it often creates regret later. Calm feels uncomfortable at first because it goes against your instinct. Your ego wants to defend, explain, and prove. But every time you choose calm over reaction, you strengthen self-control. You're teaching yourself that you don't need chaos to feel strong. Calm is also about self-respect. When you react impulsively, you let someone else pull you out of character. When you stay calm, you stay aligned with who you want to be. You don't abandon your values just because someone else is having a bad day. You protect your energy, your dignity, and your peace. The more you practice choosing calm, the easier it becomes. At first, you'll mess up. You'll react and think, I should have handled that better. That's not failure, that's awareness. Awareness is the first step toward change. Each time you notice it, you're getting closer to mastery. Eventually, calm becomes your default, not because life gets easier, but because you get stronger. You stop needing people to behave a certain way for you to feel okay. You stop chasing validation through reactions. You realize that calm is always available to you, no matter what people do. And that's the real power. Calm isn't something you wait for, it's something you choose. Every single time. Span 200 to 600 words. Most people think staying calm is about willpower, about telling yourself to just relax when someone upsets you. But that advice never works because calm doesn't start in your thoughts. It starts in your body. The real reason people lose their temper, panic, or shut down is very little to do with logic and everything to do with the nervous system. When someone disrespects you, criticizes you, or crosses a line, your body reacts instantly. Your heart rate jumps, your muscles tighten, your breathing becomes shallow. This is not weakness, this is biology. Your nervous system is doing its job, trying to protect you from a perceived threat. The problem is, in modern life, the threat isn't a wild animal. It's a comment, a tone, a message, or a memory. And if you don't know how to regulate your nervous system, you will keep reacting as if you're in danger, even when you're not. Here's the secret. The moment you learn to calm your body, your mind follows. You cannot think your way into calm if your body feels unsafe. That's why telling yourself to be calm never works when you're triggered. but you can breathe your way into calm. You can slow your body down. And when your body slows down, your brain regains control. One of the most powerful tools you have is your breath. A slow, deep breath sends a signal to your nervous system that you are safe. It tells your body there is no emergency. And when that signal is sent, the stress response begins to shut off. You don't need to meditate for an hour. You don't need a perfect environment. You just need a few intentional breaths, in through your nose, out through your mouth, longer exhales than inhales. This simple act can stop an emotional spiral in its tracks. Another way to stop letting people control your nervous system is awareness. Start noticing what triggers you. Is it being ignored, criticized, interrupted, disrespected? When you know your triggers, you stop being blindsided by them. You begin to recognize the early signs: tight shoulders, clenched jaw, racing thoughts. That awareness gives you a chance to intervene before you explode or shut down. Movement is another powerful regulator. When emotions are high, your body wants to move. A short walk, stretching, shaking out tension, these aren't random habits. They help your nervous system release stored stress. Calm people don't sit in their emotions and let them rot. They let them move through the body and pass. Here's something important to understand when you don't regulate your nervous system. Other people end up doing it for you. Their moods dictate yours. Their chaos becomes your chaos. Their anger becomes your anxiety. But when you learn to regulate yourself, you become emotionally independent. You stop outsourcing your peace to people who can't even manage their own emotions. This is not about being unbothered. It's about being grounded. You can care and still be calm. You can be firm and still be regulated. Calm is not passive, it's controlled. The more you practice regulating your nervous system, the more resilient you become. Triggers lose their power. Situations that once overwhelmed you become manageable. And one day, you'll notice something incredible. People can try to provoke you, but they can't reach you the way they used to. That's when you know you've mastered it. You didn't change people. You changed how your body responds to them. And that changes everything. Expand 300 to 600 words. One of the biggest reasons people lose their calm is because they feel an invisible pressure to respond to everything. A comment is made, a message is sent, a look is given, and instantly the mind jumps into action. You start crafting a reply, defending yourself, explaining your intentions, or proving your point. It feels urgent, like if you don't respond right now, you're losing something. Respect, control, power. But that urgency is an illusion. Not everything requires your reaction. And the moment you understand this, your life becomes quieter. Silence is uncomfortable for many people because we've been conditioned to equate reaction with strength. We think that if we don't respond, we're weak, passive, or letting someone win. But calm people understand something deeper. Reacting to everything actually gives other people control. It means they can push a button and instantly hijack your emotions, your time, and your energy. Choosing not to react is not avoidance. It's discernment. It's the ability to say, this doesn't deserve my energy. You don't owe everyone an explanation. You don't owe everyone access to your inner world. And you definitely don't owe your peace to people who thrive on conflict. When someone says something provocative, your first impulse might be to correct them, to defend your reputation, to make sure they understand you. But here's the truth. People who are committed to misunderstanding you will never be satisfied by your explanations. Engaging with them only keeps you trapped in a cycle where you're constantly trying to be seen by someone who has already decided not to see you. Calm comes from learning to sit with discomfort. The discomfort of not responding right away. The discomfort of letting someone think what they think. The discomfort of unanswered messages or unresolved tension. At first, that discomfort feels unbearable. Your mind will create stories. They'll think, I'm weak. This will get worse. I need to fix this now. But if you stay still, you'll notice something powerful. The discomfort fades. And in its place, clarity appears. Not reacting gives you space. Space to think. Space to feel. Space to choose a response instead of a reflex. And often, once you create that space, you realize there's nothing to respond to at all. The issue dissolves on its own, or it reveals itself as something that never mattered in the first place. There's also a deep sense of self-respect that comes from not reacting. When you respond impulsively, you often say things you don't mean or share more than you should. When you stay quiet, you protect your dignity. You don't let temporary emotions create permanent damage. You stay in alignment with the person you want to be, not the person a situation is trying to turn you into. This doesn't mean you never speak up. Calm doesn't mean silence forever. It means intentional communication. When you do choose to speak, it's clear, measured, and grounded. You're not speaking from emotion. You're speaking from truth. And that kind of communication carries far more weight than any emotional reaction ever could. Over time, people will notice. They'll notice that you're harder to provoke, that you don't engage in drama, that your energy doesn't rise and fall with every situation. Some people will respect you more. Others will try harder to get a reaction. That's your signal that you're doing something right. The secret isn't mastering the perfect response. It's realizing that you don't have to respond at all. And in that realization, you find calm that no one can take from you. Expand 400 to 600 words. One of the most freeing realizations you can have is understanding that most behavior is not personal, even when it feels deeply personal. When someone snaps at you, ignores you, criticizes you, or treats you unfairly, your mind immediately assumes meaning. You think it's about your worth, your value, or something you did wrong. But in most cases, what you're witnessing is someone else acting out their internal world. People carry invisible battles. Stress they don't talk about, fear they haven't healed, insecurities they don't understand. And when pressure builds, it spills outward. You just happen to be standing there when it does. That doesn't make you the cause. It makes you the witness. The moment you stop personalizing everything, you stop absorbing emotional weight that was never yours to carry. You stop replaying conversations in your head, wondering what you should have said differently. You stop trying to manage other people's emotions as if they were your responsibility. Calm comes from emotional detachment, not indifference, but clarity. Detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care without self-abandonment. You recognize that someone's tone, mood, or reaction is a reflection of their inner state, not a verdict on your character. When you truly understand this, criticism loses its sting. Disrespect loses its power. Other people's chaos no longer dictates your peace. This shift requires practice because the brain is wired to seek approval. From a young age, we learn to adjust ourselves to be liked, accepted, and safe. So when someone reacts negatively, it triggers that old fear of rejection. Your body tightens, your mind starts negotiating. But the adult version of you doesn't need universal approval to survive. You don't need to earn your worth through other people's behavior. Another powerful part of not taking things personally is realizing that people treat you based on their capacity, not your value. Someone who lacks emotional regulation will lash out. Someone who lacks communication skills will avoid. Someone who lacks self-awareness will blame. Expecting emotionally limited people to behave with emotional maturity will only frustrate you. When you stop expecting people to be more evolved than they are, you stop being disappointed. You meet them where they are, not where you wish they could be. And from that place, you make better decisions. You choose how close to let them get. You choose how much energy to invest. You choose whether engagement is worth it. This perspective also protects you from unnecessary self-doubt. Not every rejection is a reflection of your shortcomings. Not every conflict is a sign you failed. Sometimes it simply means you encountered someone who couldn't meet you with the same level of respect, awareness, or kindness. That's information, not an insult. Calm grows when you stop internalizing external noise. When someone is upset, you can acknowledge their emotion without taking it on. You can listen without absorbing. You can empathize without self-blame. This emotional separation creates stability. You remain grounded even when others are not. Over time, this way of thinking rewires how you experience interactions. You become less reactive, less defensive, less exhausted by people. You stop carrying conversations long after they end. You let moments pass instead of turning them into stories about your worth. And that's the real freedom. And you stop taking things personally. You stop making everything about you. You see people clearly. You see yourself clearly. And in that clarity, calm becomes your natural state. No matter what people do, expand 500 to 600 words. Staying calm isn't just about managing emotions in the moment. It's about building a life that protects your peace. And that's where boundaries come in. Boundaries are not rules meant to control other people. They are decisions you make about what you will accept, tolerate, and engage with. When boundaries are clear, calm becomes easier. When boundaries are weak or non-existent, chaos has easy access to your life. Many people struggle with boundaries because they confuse them with rejection. They worry that setting limits will make them seem rude, selfish, or unkind. So instead of speaking up, they stay silent. They overextend. They tolerate behavior that drains them. And over time, that silence turns into resentment, frustration, and emotional exhaustion. Calm doesn't disappear suddenly. It erodes slowly when your needs are consistently ignored. Boundaries are an act of self-respect. They say, my time matters, my energy matters, my emotional well-being matters. When you don't honor those things, you teach people how to treat you. Not through words, but through what you allow. Every time you say yes when you mean no, every time you stay quiet to keep the peace, you reinforce a pattern that works against your calm. One of the most powerful truths about boundaries is this: you don't need to explain them to everyone. Healthy boundaries don't require long justifications or emotional speeches. They are simple, clear, and consistent. Sometimes a boundary is a sentence. Sometimes it's a pause. Sometimes it's distance. Calm people understand that over-explaining is often a sign of guilt, not clarity. Setting boundaries may feel uncomfortable at first because it disrupts familiar dynamics. People who benefited from your lack of boundaries may resist when you start creating them. They may guilt you, question you, or accuse you of changing. But discomfort doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It often means you're doing something new, and growth is rarely comfortable. Boundaries also help you conserve emotional energy. When you know what you will and won't engage with, you stop reacting to everything. You stop trying to fix, save, or manage people. You recognize that you are responsible for your actions, not for controlling other people's reactions. This shift alone can dramatically reduce stress. Another important aspect of boundaries is recognizing that you can't have deep access with everyone. Not everyone deserves your vulnerability, your time, or your emotional investment. Calm people are selective. They don't overshare with unsafe people. They don't seek validation from those who don't respect them. They choose their inner CI, RCLE carefully, and that choice protects their peace. Boundaries also create clarity in relationships. They remove guesswork. They communicate expectations. And when expectations are clear, misunderstandings decrease. You don't need to be harsh or cold to be firm. You can be kind and still be clear. Calm doesn't require aggression. It requires honesty. Over time, boundaries become less about defense and more about alignment. You stop reacting to what feels wrong because you're already positioned in what feels right. You design your life in a way that supports your nervous system instead of constantly challenging it. When your boundaries are strong, staying calm becomes natural. You're no longer constantly recovering from emotional hits. You're no longer managing other people's chaos. You've created space for peace to exist. That's the real power of boundaries. They don't push people away. They protect the part of you that needs calm in order to thrive. Expand 600 to 600 words. There is a quiet kind of power that most people misunderstand. It doesn't shout. It doesn't rush to prove a point. It doesn't need to dominate a room. It simply remains steady when everything around it is unstable. That power belongs to the calmest person in the room. When you stay calm, you gain access to something others lose in emotional moments: clarity. While others are reacting, defending, and escalating, you are observing. You're listening not just to words, but to tone, energy, and intention. You see the situation for what it really is, not what emotions are trying to turn it into. And that perspective gives you control. Control doesn't mean controlling people. It means controlling you, ourself. Most conflicts spiral because emotions hijack reason. Voices rise, words become weapons, regret follows. But when you remain calm, you interrupt that pattern. You don't add fuel to the fire, you don't mirror chaos, and because of that, you often shift the entire dynamic without saying much at all. Calm gives you strategic advantage. When you're regulated, you choose your words carefully. You speak with intention. Or you choose silence because you recognize that silence carries weight. People may expect you to react emotionally. When you don't, it unsettles them. Not because you're manipulating, but because you're not playing the same game. You're operating from a higher level of awareness. There's also a deep sense of confidence that comes with calm. When you don't feel the need to react, explain, or defend yourself, it signals self-trust. You know who you are. You don't need external validation to confirm it. That inner certainty makes you harder to intimidate, harder to provoke, and harder to control. Leadership in its truest form is rooted in calm. Whether in families, workplaces, or communities, people naturally look to the most regulated person in moments of tension. Calm creates safety. It reassures others. It slows things down. Even when you're not in a formal leadership role, your emotional regulation influences those around you. Your calm becomes contagious. Staying calm also protects your future self. Emotional reactions feel justified in the moment, but they often come at a cost. Damaged relationships, lost opportunities, words you wish you could take back. Calm gives you foresight. It allows you to act in ways you'll be proud of later, not ways you'll need to apologize for. This doesn't mean you never feel anger or frustration. Calm people feel deeply. The difference is they don't let feelings drive the wheel. They acknowledge emotions without letting them dictate behavior. They pause, they process, and then they respond in a way that aligns with their values. Over time, this way of being changes how people interact with you. Some will respect you more. Some will feel uncomfortable because they can't push your buttons. Some may even distance themselves because they relied on emotional reactions to feel powerful. That's not a loss. That's clarity. The calmest person in the room doesn't need to win arguments to win respect. Their presence speaks louder than their words. Their steadiness becomes authority. Not forced authority, but earned authority. And that's the secret. When you master calm, you don't just manage emotions, you lead them. You become the one who sets the tone instead of reacting to it. No matter what people do, you remain grounded. And in that groundedness, you hold real power.